So welcome to this week's special programming at the Palestine Museum US in Woodbridge, Connecticut. We have a hybrid event today, an open conversation on the current situation in Israel and Palestine. And thank you for tuning in via Zoom. And of course, we have people attending at the museum on location in Woodbridge, Connecticut.
Thank you,
We
Krista.
will get started shortly.
I'll take it from you. Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Faisal Saleh, the founder and executive director of the Palestine Museum US. We apologize for the delay in starting. As you know, there are a lot of loose ends to tie and people in traffic, and nobody ever gets here on time on a Sunday afternoon. So we have a lot of experience with that. But thanks again, and thank you for being here. I'd also like to thank the people with us, the 157 people from 30 countries who are with us on Zoom today. We have a well-engaged audience around the world that follows us and participate in our programming, and we appreciate that. To begin with, I'd like to start by having a moment of remembrance for an artist who was killed yesterday. Just bear with me for a moment.
And Faisal, I'm assuming you're talking about Heba Zahut, who
Yes,
was
yeah.
featured in the photo behind you.
Yeah, we will in a moment here see if we can swing this correctly. And let's see. I think it's...
So thanks for your patience. We're just making sure that we have our technology set up properly for this hybrid event.
Krista, do you see?
Yes,
okay.
I do. Yes, it's now showing up as a shared screen.
All right, so let's hope the audio works. Thank you.
And Faisal, I think you mentioned to me earlier that not only did she and her family lose their lives in a bombing campaign, an Israeli bombing campaign yesterday, but that all of her artwork was also destroyed, which would have been her legacy long after.
That is correct. She had kept almost all her artwork at home. She was one of those artists who did not try to exhibit her work all over the place, although she had one or two exhibits. So it's a sad, unfortunate, but she's one of the thousands who were killed. Also, she's not the only one.
Well, and what it just gives at least one face for today, for right now, to this this extensive bombing campaign that is going on as we speak in the Gaza Strip and across Israel. So it is important to remember that we can take the tally of how many people have died on both sides and how many people are injured but we do need to remember that we're not losing numbers, we're losing people, we're losing their families, their histories, their gifts to the world, their contributions, their own aspirations for a future for themselves and their families.
Thanks, Krista. Today, I'd like to cover 2 or 3 topics in our discussion and presentation here. First, I would like to talk a little bit about the historical context of what's going on. If you turn the TV on and start watching, you'd think this whole thing just started a week ago. Also, I want to talk about how the US media, the mainstream media, I should say, because not all of the media, and the European media and the Western media in general, how they have been reporting on what is going on. And finally, I'd like to share with you some facts and feelings about what is going on in Gaza now and what Israel is up to. And we will try to share some videos from other people, and we like to have a conversation and people ask questions, and both here and remotely, and we'll try to engage in discussion. So to begin with, I'm going to read a short, a brief. You guys can probably read it faster than I can. It is imperative to understand that the current situation in Gaza did not materialize overnight, nor did it merely begin a week ago. Rather, it is a product of a prolonged history that spans back 75 years, the roots of the conflict, if you really want to call it a conflict, and I personally would not call it a conflict, can be traced back to the establishment of Israel in 1948, when Zionist forces depopulated and destroyed more than 500 Palestinian villages. 200 of them were destroyed before the state of Israel was declared, forcibly expelling approximately 800,000 Palestinians. The catastrophic event resulted in the displacement of 80% of the Palestinian population and the creation of a refugee crisis that persists to this day. So I want to stop here for a moment and get into some more details about what did Israel exactly do in 1948 and how come nobody knows about it. By nobody, I mean the average person on the street has no clue what happened. They think there was a war and Israel won, and there was they call it the War of Independence. And there are a number of lies that we will be dealing with today, and that's the War of Independence is one of them. There are a few other ones that we will address. I want to share with you an animation, a map, what we call it's a map animation that kind of gives us a little bit more insight as to how this depopulation and destruction took place in terms of what the sequence is and how it looked. So if you give me a moment here. And now the tricky part, I need to share that. Okay, so perfect. What we will see here is an animation. May make it a little smaller so it does not get covered by all the. As you could tell here, I'm the speaker and the producer of the show also. The cameraman. I'm assisted by a second cameraman.
So
we have
be
3
patient
cameras.
with our technical know-how.
All right, so what you will see here is a map of Palestine as it existed around 1948. And you're going to see the sequencing of what the Zionist forces did. And the villages are going to be color-coded with 3 colors. The red color indicates that they used a massacre to get people out of that particular village. And there were 36 massacres that took place. And a definition of a massacre is when you kill a certain number of people that pose no threat to you, and that you have no reason to kill. In other words, they haven't done anything to you, etc. The next color is going to be I'm not sure which color it is, but it is the forced evacuation, where the Zionist forces held guns to people and told them, if you don't leave, we're going to kill you. Get out of here. And there are many places that was the case. And the third one is evacuation through terrorism. And the definition of terrorism is doing outrageous things and scaring the daylight out of people and making them grab their children and run. And that happened in many villages, especially the Zionist forces were going around with loudspeakers saying, remember, there you're seeing, get out. And we have that, a British officer in a film that he made had actually said that he heard it himself in the streets of Jaffa, that the loudspeakers were going around saying, remember, there you're seeing, get out with the British, etc. So let's begin here. And this takes 10 minutes. I'm going to speed it up halfway through so that it won't take as much time. Krista, there should be audio with this.
Yes, there is. It's there.
Can everybody see it? If you can't on there, you can stand up a little bit if you want to see it.
So there's the color coding that Faisal was just explaining.
Every Palestinian refugee knows the date on which their village was taken down.
And the first date here is December 12th. Sorry, I lost the date. December 12th, I think it was 1947. So this is day by day. Of course, this time period follows the UN resolution to partition Palestine into a Jewish and Arab state. And following that announcement, Zionist militias immediately moved in to take over Palestinian areas that were quote unquote promised to the Jewish state. So this is the beginning of the dispossession of the Palestinian people.
Notice we're not May 15th when Israel was declared as a state. The British were still here. This was going on underneath their nose, and they didn't do anything about it.
And now you see on some of these days, not one, but many villages were destroyed in the same day.
Now, my village was on April 25th. It's called Salama. You'll see it come up. We're on the 12th of April.
So here we are still a month before the official declaration of the State of Israel. The British were still on the ground as part of the British mandate that was declared after the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire after World War I. So you have British troops on the ground, witnessing and to some extent facilitating the dispossession of Palestinians from their homes. The British did not allow Palestinians to carry weapons at that time, although it did use the Jewish community in the British Mandate Palestine as police force, in part to crush the
So this is my village. This is my village here, Salama.
Yeah, Salama.
There were 7,000 people living in it, and on April 25th, the number was 0.
And there's Jaffa, April 26, 1948. Actually, the 12 Palestinian cities fell into the hands of Jewish militias before Israel declared statehood, and the populations of those cities were forced to move out. So it's not just the dispossession of people's land from villages, but from their treasured cities. Jaffa, Akka, Haifa, Tiberias, Bisan, Safed, Beersheba, El Majdal, which is now Ashkelon, and a number of cities throughout what was historic Palestine that were virtually emptied of their Palestinian populations. %80 of the Palestinian population in these areas were expelled from Palestine, and to this day are not allowed to return. And others who remained in what became Israel, many were internally displaced. That means they ended up living somewhere other than where their families were from, because so many villages were destroyed. So they moved to nearby villages that remained, or to the cities, and they were under martial law until 1966, when Israel offered citizenship to those who remained in what became Israel. So up to that point, 1966, Palestinians were living under martial law in their own homeland.
Excuse me, Krista. Krista.
Yes.
Those of you who are at the museum here, the finished map, when it ends, there's a copy of it on the floor in the room next door. You walk in, you can actually walk over it. You'll see a big map on the floor showing this.
Yeah, my mother-in-law fled from a village near Jenin during the Nakba, and ended up having her eldest son in a cave in a small village south of where they were living in what is now the West Bank. Then in 1967, her daughter experienced the exact same thing, giving birth to her eldest son as they fled from war in 1967, had her eldest son in a cave. So as the map fills in, these are Palestinian communities that were not able to remain in their homes, on their land, lost their properties, their livelihood, the ability to raise their children in their own homeland, forced to grow up somewhere else, learn other languages, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, thank you, Krista. So this was not enough for the Zionists, what they did. They changed the names of all those villages. They changed them into Hebrew names, and they falsified the history books so that the word Palestine does not exist, and the word Palestinians don't exist. Until today, Israel says there's no such thing as Palestine. And those of you who are interested in evidence to the contrary. There is a Rand McNally globe in the room next door from 1930. You'll see the word Palestine on it at the edge of the Mediterranean, right above Egypt. Of course, we also have a 53-piece coin collection, the coins that were minted by the British Mandate. Each one of those coins says Palestine on it. They're in the museum. You're welcome to go buy them if you like. So this idea of trying to erase the Palestinian identity and call us Arabs, in Israel, they call the Palestinian Arabs. And we're all Arabs, of course, but we're also Palestinian. And the word Arab kind of erases the concept of Palestine. I mean, it's so obvious also that they think people are stupid, that don't know that. And to really hide what they did completely, to hide the evidence of the crime, in some villages, they planted trees above the destruction area. And they came to the US and Canada and Europe and asked the Jewish people to plant trees in Palestine. And a lot of people did. And years later, some of them came to look at their trees that they paid for. And they started seeing under the rubble some kitchen items and toys and broken things and evidence that their tree, that forest is on top of a destroyed village. And that becomes really clear as to what Israel did. So the Palestinians don't recognize the state of Israel. The state of Israel was based on an aggression and forced eviction and violence. And the Palestinians do not recognize the state of Israel. The state of Israel is an illegitimate state. And we will not recognize Israel because it was an evil act, and the Palestinians need to receive justice. And that justice has not happened yet. So we, as Palestinians, are entitled to fight for our own rights. And our right is the people that stole our land and stole our homes and kicked us out. We need to go after them, and we're entitled to fight them and get our land back. And every Palestinian around the world is determined to stick to the right of return. We have the right to return to our villages. And this is very important from a historical point of view. If somebody comes and steals your house and kicks you out, you have the right to get your house back. We don't care what the politics are. And that's really one of the important issues that we need to address and provide in this historic perspective. So the people in Gaza, maybe 3/4 of them were living on the other side of the border in Palestine. Some of them within like 5 or 6 miles from where they are now. And some of them living in, there are all kinds of settlements around Gaza and kibbutzim and all that. A lot of those are built on the wreckage of Palestinian villages where the Palestinians were kicked out. The idea that the Israelis turned the desert into bloom is another big lie also. That there's a film called Blue Box. And some of you may know what the blue boxes were, where the people asked to donate money for Israel, and the boxes were blue. We put money in them. And the money was used to buy land in Palestine. And the person who was in charge of that was the organization was the JNF, the Jewish National Fund. And the Jewish National Fund was headed by somebody called Joseph Weitz, who was kind of a national hero in Israel up to a certain time. The great-granddaughter of Joseph Weitz found his diaries, and there were 16 of them. And she read all of them and made a film about the diaries. And there's a scene in the film where Joseph Weitz and his aides decides to go see what the Palestinians are up to in Ramallah and some of the other towns. And he said, and that was kind of a quote to the effect that we had a heartache and we were so depressed to see that the Palestinians were farming and producing and plowing and shipping and receiving and doing commerce and all that, and we had nothing. And this was in 1933, only like 15 years before 1948, when the state of Israel was created. So that's a big lie. He said that the Palestinians were turning the rocky hills into Karmei Anavim. Karmei Anavim means grape orchards in Hebrew. And I invite you to watch that film, Blue Box, and listen to that quote for yourself. Anyway, so let's move on to continuing.
Well, I think I wanna add to that. Just looking at the history, talking about the myths of the state of Israel. You know, Israel had a very well-known slogan during the Zionist movement that Palestine is a land without a people for a people without a land. And that is probably the core of the current crisis, that the state of Israel was established in Palestine as a Jewish state in a place where the Palestinian population already existed and had their homes for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So in spite of the historic or biblical or religious connection to the ancient land of Israel, to create a Jewish state in a place where there's already an existing population called Palestinians that call Palestine home was already a recipe for disaster.
Krista, we need to speed up, so thank you. Okay, so I think we okay, in 1967, Israel further escalated the conflict by occupying the remaining Palestinian territories, including the West Bank and Gaza. For the past 55 some years, Palestinians in these regions have endured the imposition of a harsh military rule, which has subjugated them to severe restrictions on their daily lives, curtailed their basic freedoms, and systematically violated their human rights. So we're talking about the occupation, and on a daily basis, Israel violates 50, 60, 100 aspects of Palestinians' human rights, ranging from practicing an apartheid system that exists where there are some roads for Palestinians and roads for Israelis and settlers, confiscating land, demolishing homes, evicting people, arresting children as young as 12 years old, putting them in prison, in solitary isolation. People talk about Hamas kidnapped Israelis. They kidnapped 150 or something like that. Or people don't realize that Israel kidnapped 5,000 Palestinians. How do you put people in prison? Do you invite them in and tell them, please come stay with us in the prison? No, they go at 3 o'clock in the morning and they break their doors down and they grab people out of bed, blindfold them, beat them up, wreck the house, and then take them to prison and throw them in prison. We consider that abduction. And we consider the prisoners that Israel has as hostages. It's not just the prisoners that are hostages in Israel. It's the bodies of the people who were killed. There's at least 150 bodies, maybe even 300, some people say, that Israel is holding, and they will not release them to the relatives of these dead people. For whatever reason, we don't know. But maybe some of them haven't finished serving their sentence and they're waiting until the sentence runs out or something. But it's a very very, very evil thing to hold the bodies of dead people and not give them to their relatives who are looking for closure. Anyway, so the issue of the occupation has been going on for 55 years. That's like a generation or two, and that's just it's not just a simple matter. You know, the Palestinians have the right to get rid of the occupation. The occupation shouldn't be there, and they are entitled to get rid of that occupation, and they have the right to fight the occupation with force if need be, and that's allowed under international law. International law says that the occupied people have the right to fight and use violence against the occupier. So whatever happened in Gaza, a lot of it, I'm not really making excuses or justifying anything or saying, but a lot of what happened was action against an occupation. And action against an occupation is allowed by international law. And Gaza is occupied, even though the Israeli troops are not there, because Gaza is surrounded, and there's been a siege on Gaza for 16 years. 16 years of Israel controlling what goes in Gaza in terms of food, fuel, who goes in, who goes out, and who flies and who doesn't fly, who goes fishing and who doesn't, and who's allowed to go to school outside of Gaza or not, and an endless thing. They go as far as measuring the calories each person, the minimum calories each person needs to survive, and they allow enough food for those calories. This is insane. None of you would want to live under these conditions. The people in Gaza are the most patient people in the world. They've been living under this for 16 years, and now look what's going on there. So, one of the most glaring injustices perpetrated against the Palestinian is their inability to return to their homes and receive compensation or justice for the losses they endured. The right of return, acknowledged by numerous international resolutions, remains denied to them, possessing a grave humanitarian and ethical dimension. This denial not only undermines their fundamental rights, but also sustains a sense of dispossession and frustration that fuels the ongoing conflict. In light of these historical injustices, it is understandable that Palestinians feel compelled to fight back and resist using all means available to them. International law recognizes the right of an occupied people to resist occupation, and Palestinians are no exception. So now we want to talk a little bit about what is going on in Gaza now and what the latest thing. Of course, the latest thing was that Israel issued an order to all Palestinians in the northern part of Gaza, which is about 1 million people, to evacuate south and gave them 24 hours to do it. That evacuation is not just able bodies who can walk or people who have cars. It's people in nursing homes, people who are disabled. The Gaza is full of people without missing limbs and legs, and there's more people with missing limbs in Gaza than any place on earth. And there are hospitals with thousands of casualties. How do you evacuate 3,000 casualties from a hospital? When Israel has cut off electricity, they have stopped fuel shipments, they have stopped food shipments, medicine shipments, and they're turning off the essential telecommunications so that the people cannot communicate. So basically, Israel has a plan. They want to take all the Palestinians out of Gaza and put them in the Sinai Desert. This is like what they did in 1948. The reason I wanted to show what happened in 48, because Israel, at least some of its leaders have been hinting about another Nakba, that they want to do another Nakba. And this is what the other Nakba is. They want to take 2 million people, 2.4 million people, and throw them in the desert. And the Gaza people are determined to stay. Not all of them are willing to move. Some of them are staying put and saying, kill us here. We don't want to go. So first of all, what Israel is trying to do is a violation of the Geneva Convention. The Geneva Convention prohibits population transfers, prohibits also the transfer of an occupier of its own people to occupied territories, which is the settlements that Israel put in the occupied territories. That's against the Geneva Convention. It further prohibits the transfer of the population from the occupied areas in significant numbers. And 1 million is definitely a significant number. So in the meantime, the Gaza people are sitting in the dark with no water, with no food, no medicine, and being bombed on top of that. And they're just waiting to see who's going to die next. It is one of the most horrible conditions. It gives collective punishment a new definition and a new heights for how far can somebody go into collective punishment. Do we have any Holocaust survivors here? It's too bad, because they could tell us about what the Nazis did in terms of collective punishments and what happened to different communities that were collectively punished. So I think we're seeing the 21st century Nazis in Israel taken over, and they feel empowered because people like Biden in the US has given them a green card and supporting them, and he ordered not just one aircraft carrier group to go to Israel, but two. There's an additional aircraft carrier group had been ordered to go to the Eastern Mediterranean, as if Israel needs any more aircraft. You know, they've dropped 6,000 bombs on Gaza, and these bombs are all dropped on buildings. There's no place to drop bombs in Gaza without hitting a building, unless you're really a sharpshooter with bombs, which it's kind of hard to do. I mean, some of you seen on the news how these big high-rise buildings collapse one after the other. I mean, there's got to be some people in these buildings. And a lot of people, when people started evacuating yesterday after Israel's order, and they started going down the road to the south, Israel bombed those people. And there were at least like 75 or 100 people killed because they were bombed while they're moving, while they're following the instructions. So much for the safety thing here. So I was listening to a conversation between a journalist in the US. His days are probably numbered now because he's going to be called anti-Semitic and all that, and they're going to get rid of him. He was talking to an Israeli former minister or former something, and the Israeli was saying, we want the Palestinians, we want them to be safe. We want them to go to the south, and we want them to go into the Sinai, and then we will do for them what they did for the Syrian refugees. We'll bring tents, and we'll bring water, and we'll bring food, and everything will be fine. We just want them to go outside of Gaza. That sounds familiar, right? And then none of them will be allowed to go back to their homes. That's what happened in 1948. And that guy was talking in a straight face. So the guy, the journalist told him, well, if you really care about their safety, why don't you let them go to Israel? Open your border and take all these civilians who are really distressed and distraught and starving. Take them into Israel and feed them there and give them the water and the tents you're talking about. Why do they have to go to the Sinai? It's a lot closer. And the guy started laughing, the Israeli guy. He said, no, that's not what we want to do. So the idea that they're really concerned about the welfare of 1 million people from Gaza is a joke, really. So what really bothers us the most is how you get a country like the United States, which is based on certain principles. The founding fathers of this country said all men are created equal. Freedom. Huh?
They didn't mean it.
Well,
No.
what?
Question.
Yeah.
Why our tax money goes for war instead of having a better health system?
Yeah.
Instead of having a better life for veterans, right?
Yeah.
We have thousands of veterans with no home, homeless in the streets. If they use that money that they collect from our taxes to build homes for them, they wouldn't be homeless anymore. Why don't we have a good education system instead of sending a lot of war equipment
Excuse
to
me?
countries that don't really?
I can have you come and speak here. The people on the Zoom can't hear you, but wait for a while and then we will give you the opportunity to come and speak. So a couple hundred people on Zoom can hear you also.
Thank you.
So what Israel is doing rises and amounts to war crimes. This is confirmed by a number of legal experts that the exact thing they are doing in Gaza today and now rises to the level of war crimes. And anybody that supports any country that's engaged in war crimes and provides them with support and encourage them to do that itself is complicit in war crimes. So the United States, the European countries, and all the countries are supporting Israel now are complicit in war crimes. And someday we may see some of the people in charge of these countries in The Hague being investigated and tried for war crimes against humanity.
If you look at this country, the United States has engaged in everything Israel is doing. That is our history. Genocide, apartheid. I do not think we can look to the United States. They are complicit.
Yeah, thank you.
Those deaths are the result of U.S. bombs.
Yeah, let me give you an opportunity to speak later on, because like I said, people can't hear you. Only the people here can hear you. But we have twice as many people on. But I appreciate your point. So this is a very important issue: is that if you are supporting Israel, you are supporting war crimes, and even before the war crimes, there were crimes against humanity and violation of human rights in occupied areas. People, if you give $1 to Israel, you're financing crimes against humanity. Let's all be clear about that. And the United States is supporting war crimes committed by Israel now. There are not that many experts that would disagree on what Israel is doing rises and amounts to war crimes right now. Okay. And we know what the media has been doing. The media are supposed to corroborate evidence. They're supposed to fact check. And they're not supposed to go say, wow, somebody said the Palestinians were cutting babies' heads. And, you blabber that to the news media, and all of a sudden, like 200 networks are repeating what you said, including the president of the United States, saying he says he had never expected to see the days where somebody is cutting babies' heads. And it turned out that babies' heads thing was a lie. Nobody was cutting any babies' heads. And it all started with one reporter. And we'll be going to see something about that in a minute. Let me share with you just a few videos that will shed some light on some of this.
كيف إسرائيل بتصنع الكذب؟
This video is in Arabic. I apologize, but there are subtitles in English. So let me try to share this with you. And all these videos are all over the internet and the social media.
كيف إسرائيل بتصنع الكذب؟ هذا الرجل أمامكم اسمه ديفيد بن صهيون، مستوطن متطرف وأكيد في جيش الاحتلال الإسرائيلي، بيناشد علنا بمحو كل القرى العربية وقتل كل إنسان فلسطيني. هو أول من روج لكذبة حماس تقطع رؤوس الأطفال.
They cut heads of children, they cut heads of women.
كذبة نشرتها أهم الصحف.
And you're saying 40 babies, dead babies.
40 babies at least.
كررها حتى رؤساء الدول.
I never really thought that I would see and have confirmed pictures of terrorists beheading children.
بدون ما يكون في عندها أي أساس. كيف بدأت القصة؟ ديفيد استضافته هاي الصحفية الألمعية، الشاهد اللي ما شافش حاجة، راسلة الشرق الأوسط، صحيفة الإندبندنت البريطانية المحترمة، نقلت أكبر كذبة بلا مصدر. بدي أجرب أتصل عليها الآن. I'm looking to speak with Beltrue. Is this Beltrue herself? I'm Muna Hawa, a Palestinian journalist and activist. I want to inform you that I'm recording this call for publication. Did you witness any of the alleged incidents where Hamas beheaded children? Are you aware that what you did has been used to legitimize and led to the killing of more children in Gaza?
I'm really sorry. I can't comment. I'm really sorry.
Why? I need an answer. Hello? سكرت الخط. لاحظتوا كيف صوتها مليان رعب وخوف؟ وبعد أكثر من يومين من الضخ المتواصل للكذبة، حماس تقطع رؤوس الأطفال.
Babies and toddlers were found with their heads decapitated.
There are bodies everywhere.
تحقيقات صحفية لاحقت الخبر وتم التأكيد هذه مجرد كذبة أخرى من أكاذيب الاحتلال الإسرائيلي. هون بدأوا الصحفيين اللي نقلوا شهادات جيش الاحتلال يعترفوا إنهم ما شافوا شيء. البيت الأبيض نفسه اعترف إنه بايدن كمان ما شاف شيء، بس الفيديوهات ما زالت موجود. واحد منهم صار واصل لأكثر من 27 مليون مشاهدة وما حذف. بس شو الهدف من نشر الأكاذيب رغم إنهم عارفين إنها مجرد كذبة؟ إسرائيل عم تعمل مثل ما بالضبط النازية كانت بتعمل. وزير الدعاية النازي جوزيف جوبلز كان بيقول إذا كررت الكذبة أكثر فأكثر ستصبح حقيقة. إسرائيل تصنع الكذبة، مشاهير العالم بكرروها، الصحف بتنشرها، رؤساء الدول بيأكدوها.
We get the point. Next, I would like you to listen to this thing. Just put some picture on it so I could find it easily. This person is a former minister in Greece, from Europe, and we'll share that. And let's listen to him.
Those who try very hard to extract from people like me, from DiEM25, a condemnation of the attack by the Hamas guerrillas will never get it. And they will never get it for a very simple reason. Those who care about humans without any discrimination, those who care equally about a Jew and an Arab, must ask themselves a very simple question. What exactly is their idea of the cessation of hostilities? That Palestinians are going to lay down their arms and go back into the largest open-air prison in the world, where they are constantly suffocated by the apartheid state? In other words, back in South Africa, in the era of apartheid, what was the problem? Was it that some members of the black resistance including the ANC, but not only the ANC, took up arms against the South African regime and sometimes killed innocent people. Was that the problem with apartheid? No, the problem was apartheid. Apartheid, whether it's practiced in South Africa or in Palestine or Israel, is always going to procure violence because it's a violent, misanthropic system. Any human being living under apartheid at some point will either die a terrible silent death or rebel and often take innocent people with them. The criminals here are not Hamas, not even the Israeli settlers who are killing Palestinians. The criminals are Europeans, us, every single member of our German society, our French society, our Greek society, our United States society. We have participated in this crime against humanity over the decades by keeping our mouths shut as long as there is no trouble down there, as long as people are dying outside the reach of cameras, as long as it's Palestinians who die and not the occupiers. So, this incredible tragedy must be converted into an opportunity for us Europeans to wake up and to redeem ourselves by demanding that collectively we take the first decisive step towards peace, and that is the destruction of the state of apartheid, just like we did in South Africa.
Let's go to another.
Faisal, it's interesting that you show that video because it's actually almost like a broken record to keep the conversation around condemning violence. And of course, none of us want anyone to die, especially not people who are caught in the crossfire. But one of our guests in the chat said that that's what she was looking for. She came here to hear us condemn violence, particularly with Hamas, and unless she got that, she's checking out, and she checked out. So I encourage those of you who are waiting for that statement to just listen. Yes.
There's nothing that Hamas has done or is doing that Israel has not done 40 times over. Name one thing that Hamas has done that Israel hasn't done 100 times more than that thing that you're talking about. Name one thing. Hamas kidnapped people, Israel kidnapped thousands of people. Hamas kills children, if you say, Israel kills children every day. They've killed 250 children since January. Can anybody here think of anything that Hamas does that Israel doesn't do a lot more of? So let's call a spade here. People talk about Hamas being a terrorist organization. Well, Israel is the biggest terrorist in the world. What do you call the soldiers that go out every night in the streets in Jerusalem and in other Palestinian communities that have been told by their dispatchers, find 5 Palestinian homes randomly, any ones you want to pick, and go in, terrorize everybody, turn the place upside down, rough up the parents in front of the children, pull the children out of bed, and then leave. I'm not making this up. The Israeli soldiers who used to do that are on record describing in full detail what they used to do. Isn't that like the definition of terrorism?
Well, and the difference is that states have the privilege of inflicting violence, and they can pass laws to make it legal. It's legal in Israel to detain Palestinians without trial. Everything they're doing according to their own law books is actually legal.
Yeah,
but is it okay with? Is it humane? Is it so?
Okay. let's move on.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is the next thing we wanna share. And this is short. It won't take long. Actually, we're on it here.
We are now able to move on from calling Gaza an open-air prison and officially begin referring to it as an extermination camp, a death camp. Unironically, an act that was committed during the Holocaust. And when I say extermination camp, I don't mean that as an expression or as an exaggeration. At this point, it is literally, by definition, an extermination camp. A piece of land that is fenced off with another group outside of the fence exterminating the people inside. That's what's happening to Gaza right now. I think when we hear the phrase Gaza is under military blockade, for a lot of people, especially here in the West, that's such an abstract idea that they don't realize when you combine a military blockade with carpet bombing, we're literally talking about a genocide. No exaggeration or cynicism, an actual genocide in 2023. Gaza has been bombed by Israel countless times in the past decade, but this is a level of catastrophe that Gaza has never seen before. It has never been this bad. And these aren't my words. This is coming from people in Gaza right now. We're talking about 2 million people, half of which are children, stacked essentially on a sliver of land that is 5 miles wide and 25 miles long, blocked off from the world by land, sea, and air. Israel is carpet bombing this small piece of land, and the Palestinians aren't able to escape because Israel is blocking them in. They can't leave by land because Israel bombed the only exit point out of Gaza, destroying the crossing between Gaza and Egypt. They can't leave by sea because Israel has control over the waters, and Palestinians aren't allowed to go beyond 1 mile from the shore. And they can't leave by air because Israel destroyed their airport in the early 2000s and prevents them from utilizing the airspace above Gaza. So they're forced to just sit there in Gaza waiting for their inevitable death. Israel is literally flattening entire neighborhoods in Gaza, you guys. I mean, like 20, 25 buildings within a given space flattened. Bombing these buildings so hard that there's literally nothing left but dust. We're not talking about buildings belonging to militant groups. We're talking about residential buildings, flats, apartments filled with Palestinian families. They're bombing and killing off entire families, cutting off an entire lineage. The kids, their parents, the siblings and families of their parents. I mean, the entire family name erased from this earth. They're bombing homes, schools, universities, hospitals, office buildings, buildings belonging to non-profit organizations, mosques, churches. There is nothing that they will not bomb. And as if that's not enough, Israel has cut off their electricity, their water supply, and their food supply. Because there's no electricity, they're sitting there waiting to be killed in the dark. Everyone is staring at the battery percentage on their phones because they won't be able to charge it. The hospitals, one by one, are closing down because they don't have electricity to see their patients. So after a Palestinian gets bombed, if they survive, they don't even have a hospital to go to. There's sinks, toilets, showers, no running water. Israel cut it off. The streets are covered with so much rubble from the buildings that were bombed, cars can't get through. The streets are full of rubble. The cars can't get through the town. Ambulances can't get around to help people who need them. People are spending days lifting concrete slabs to find the corpse of a family member. And as if that's not enough, Israel is blocking humanitarian aid from entering Gaza from Egypt, threatening Egypt, saying if you send supplies and aid to the border, we are going to bomb your trucks. That is how severe the situation is right now in Gaza. They're bombing Gaza as a city back 2 centuries. There are areas that will never recover from the amount of damage that's being done, as in absolutely decimated, back to dust. And Israel brags and takes pride in the fact that before they bomb a residential building, knowingly, they know it's a residential building, they know these are just families, they boast that before the bombs hit, they call the residents and tell them, hey, we're about to bomb your building, get out now. Both the government and the people of Israel view that as a mercy on Palestinian people. As in,
Benevolent.
we are blessing them with the opportunity to not get bombed. God forbid they don't have their phone on them at any given moment. They're having to keep their phones within arm's reach at all times, hoping to not get a call from the Israeli military and pray that their phone doesn't die because they don't have electricity to charge it. And just because they feel like it, now the military is not calling certain buildings and bombing it without warning. And other buildings calling them, but giving them less than 30 seconds to get to the bottom of the building and escape from the bombing. Rows of dead Palestinian bodies, lines of body bags filled with an entire Palestinian family. The parents, the kids, grandparents, cousins, aunts, uncles. They live in the same building, so they all died together and therefore all lined up together in body bags. And the world is doing nothing about this. The Arabic countries, Muslim countries, not a word. The West and Europe actually encouraging that Israel go harder. The US deployed the largest warship in history to assist Israel. The US is sending in warplanes to assist Israel. And Israel has now communicated that there's going to be a ground invasion with over 300,000 Israeli militants. Fighting who? Hamas? A military group? One of the largest, most well-funded, sophisticated military powers in the world, decimating an entire group of people who don't even have their own independent government, who don't even have a military. And somehow, Israel is the victim in this situation. And somehow, Israel is not asked to condemn acts. The world has failed Gaza, y'all. 2 million people, 1 million children sitting, waiting for their own death. Ya Rabbi. Ya.
Okay. All right. I think we want to try to take some time and get some feedback from some of the people. So if you would like to speak on Zoom, please raise your hand on Zoom. And in the audience here, please raise your hand if you like to talk. So you go next. Question. Yes, go ahead.
I don't question for a second Israel or the Palestinians' right to commit violence to achieve the return of their civilization. What I'm wondering about is knowing that Netanyahu and his government was laboring to do exactly this to the Palestinians. What was their thinking in giving them this golden opportunity? That's what they're a little puzzling.
I don't know the answer to the question. The question is, let me repeat the question first. Let me repeat the question. The question is, why did Hamas do what they did, knowing that Israel is going to come after them like hell and kill a lot of people? Is that what
that's essentially that?
I don't know the answer. I'm not Hamas, and I don't speak for them.
Considering the asymmetry of the situation,
some people, at some point, people reach a point where it doesn't matter to them.
I get that too. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like half the people in Gaza says, "Kill us now, and get us out of our misery."
Maybe it's a way of exposing the world's inhumanity to itself.
Well, I mean, maybe this is one way of getting the attention of the world.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm sorry, you were going to say.
Yeah. Would you like to, please, if you want to talk, come here. Yeah, just come sit next to me on the chair right there. Because we people.
Actually,
and do you want to say your
for your question
ma'am.
is another question.
Point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel more comfortable.
The microphone is here.
Okay. So the answer is for your question is another question. What do you expect for 2 million people trapped in the biggest open prison without any sources? Do you expect them to wait for their death? That's it? Well, if you want to treat people like animals, they will break out at some point. They're missing any human rights, any basic human rights, even clean water for their kids. They've been bombed every few months while the whole world is watching. What do you expect from them? What do you expect with no education, with no sources? What do you expect? They're repeating the Holocaust again while the world on silence. Don't look at it as Palestinian or Israeli. Just put yourself in their shoes. Just imagine yourself over there and you will know the answer.
You can stay for a second. Yeah. Can you speak loud, please?
Giving them the opportunity to turn a slow motion genocide into a fast motion genocide.
So the gentleman is saying is giving them the opportunity to turn a slow motion genocide into an accelerated genocide.
That's what.
Yes. Let me see. I think we're gonna have to take a question probably from the other side, and then. Okay, would you like to come here and give us your answer? Thank you. And,
Thank you so much.
You want to tell us anything about yourself?
Excuse me?
You want to tell us anything about yourself?
No, thank you.
Yeah.
My name, Rahaf Hammami. I'm Syrian American. But I would like to answer
Speak a little bit louder.
the gentleman. I'd like to answer you because I think there is a very clear answer to this. If you, I don't know if you watched Netanyahu talking in the General Assembly, he held a map. And the map, while he was talking about making peace with the Arab countries, a man of peace, he is so proud to make peace with Saudi Arabia, which is going to, upend everything that's happening, everything's going to be fine. And then he holds this map that completely erased the presence of Palestine. The Golan Heights, Gaza, the West Bank, everything is Israel. That is, what do you call this? That's the point of no return. Israel wants to liquidate the issue of Palestine, wants to people to forget all about the legitimacy and the international law and the Security Council resolutions. We reached this point, and nobody is stupid. So anybody who wants to defend Palestine, they have to act, and that's why Hamas acted. And that's what I think. And we have to say that since Obama started this plan, which in his opinion probably, with all goodwill, he wanted to make peace for Israel with everybody except with Palestine. He wanted everybody to be in peace with Israel, while ignoring completely this people who is fighting for their identity, for the rights that we all have. We as Americans, we understand this. We have the right to live free, to pursue our happiness, to have our land. And he wanted to completely ignore this. And I'm sorry, but our foreign policy does not really change. We do all this circus of getting a president and then another president. Everything is, thank you so much.
Can you hold on a second? Krista, do we have people on? Let's take the first person online. How about Mindy? You're muted, Krista.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was saying that there are some hands raised.
Yeah, so Mindy Gershon, we're giving you an opportunity to talk. Please accept. Okay, and if you can unmute yourself and raise yourself up a little so we can see you. Excellent. Go ahead.
Geez, I wasn't asking to speak.
Your hand was up.
No, well, it's fine. I don't care. I don't know. We should, in fact, be doing whatever we can to tell politicians to call for a ceasefire and writing to media people, and it just seems like the whole world is against the Palestinian people and those of us who support them. I've just been horrified. I don't understand how our regular media, I tuned into one of the talk shows this morning, and they're talking about Saudi Arabia and Oman this and Cairo this. And I just dropped her a note like, maybe you don't know what's happening, because if you really knew, that's what you'd be talking about. They're cutting off food and water and so on and so on. Of course, she's not going to write back, but it's hard to conceive of that they're going ahead with an absolute slaughter of as many as they can of 2.3 million people, and have accomplished what took them a year or so to do 47, 48. They've done it in a week, and worse, because they've destroyed all the infrastructure. They're not keeping those homes for themselves. I'm sorry, I'm just ranting, but it's just
Mindy, for context, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, I grew up Orthodox Jewish Zionist, went to yeshiva and Jewish camps, Ramah, and between in 67 I was over there right after the war with the camp, and something didn't feel right, but I didn't pay a lot of attention, and I've changed a lot. Went to college, got real involved in being against the war in Vietnam, et cetera, et cetera. Fast forward, started realizing I couldn't do that and at the same time support what was going on in Israel, that if I was being lied to by my own government, chances are I was also being lied to by the Israeli government. Read things like The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine by Ilan Pappé, and then took courses and have been very active in Palestine Solidarity for, I guess, 20 years.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We take, yes, do you want to join me here? Somebody from the audience here. We'll take turns, Krista, from here and there.
And Faisal, there are actually questions in the Q&A. I'll look at them right now. I didn't realize
Okay,
that.
we will pause and we will pause and take some questions after this gentleman here. Make sure we see you.
Hi, my name's Justin Paglino. I live in Guilford. I'm a member of the Green Party of Connecticut and a chair of the New Haven chapter of the Green Party. My heart is breaking over what's going on, and I just want to say that this is unsupportable. This is morally untenable to support what our U.S. government has been doing, not just recently, but for decades, to support the crimes of Israel that we've heard in great detail today. And I just want everyone to consider that their vote is a moral action, and it's one of the few things we have as actual power as citizens when we decide who we're going to vote for in our elections, because the people we vote for are making decisions that have life and death consequences. And so I just ask you to consider, is Joe Biden a moral person that you can consider voting for, given what he's doing? I don't. To me, the answer is a clear no. So I'll be voting for whoever the Green Party nominee is. There's going to be other options that you can vote for president. It's a moral decision. I ask people to take it very seriously.
Let me ask you this. What is the Green Party's position on what's going on now in Gaza?
The Green Party absolutely stands with the Palestinian people, and we call for an end to apartheid, and we call for the end of U.S. military assistance to Israel. Mm-hmm. We put out, there's a statement out that's on the website right now, gp.org. Mm-hmm. And, we want, I'm not sure the official position, if it's a one-state solution or if it's...
We don't have to resolve that problem now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Speaking of the one state and two state, I want to share a video.
Thank you.
Just a quick video about the concept of the one state, two state thing. This is a person that Israel calls anti-Semitic. Of course, they call so many people anti-Semitic. It loses its meaning after a while. And meanwhile, the real anti-Semitics are parading in Miami, in Florida, with their full uniform, Nazi uniforms, and nobody's paying attention to them. By the way, if you are here and before you go, you haven't been to the museum, the door is back there to see the museum. This is not the whole museum here. This is just the function room. But take an opportunity to visit the exhibits at the museum.
Good evening. This is what I wrote 2 days ago on the 11th. I'm going to read it out to you. It's just called Gaza, 11th of October, 2023. My heart is heavy. I'm angry and sad. I have things to say, obviously. I've been banging this drum for nearly 20 years. My message is simple. All these years, it's felt to me almost as if we're deaf to Mother Nature's calls for equal human rights for all our brothers and sisters. Equal human rights being the only antidote to war. Last Saturday, we listened to allegations of war crimes. I condemn them unreservedly. I have a Palestinian friend, Lama Al-Ariya. She lives in Beirut. She texted me in the middle of the night to tell me that 11 members of her family, including a 2-year-old cousin, were killed by Israeli bombing as they sat in the dark in Gaza on Sunday night. Naomi Klein, in an article in The Guardian yesterday, said, "This cannot be allowed to go on." I agree with Naomi Klein. Here's my suggestion of what should be done. It's only an opinion. This is what should be done. 1, there must be an immediate and permanent ceasefire. No more killing by anyone, Hamas and the IDF included. So what next? How to prevent future bloodshed. 2, get round a big table and hammer out the bones of a one-state solution to this whole unholy mess. One based on respect for equal human rights under international law. A new state with equal human rights for all its citizens, irrespective of their ethnicity or religion or previous nationality. This new state would be I've written this in italics, an actual real democracy. 3, my suspicion is that the new state's constitution would need to include provision for truth and reconciliation hearings like they had in post-apartheid South Africa. 4, a side issue. Obviously, the Golan Heights are not part of any of this. They are part of Syria, where they belong. So that's the dream. My heart is still heavy. I weep for all my brothers and sisters in the Holy Land, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Druze, agnostic, and atheist alike. Can we all look forward together to a world without war? Do we believe in universal human rights or not? Do we dream of a world where all men and women are equal under the law or not? My father, 1914 to 1944, dreamed that dream. He died in Italy fighting the Nazis to defend that dream. I dream that dream too. No ifs, no ands, no buts. I dream that dream too. So, to whom it may concern, please stop. Love all.
So you guys know who this is, right? Roger Waters. He's the rock star from Pink Floyd. Israel, he's on the Israel list of anti-Semitic people. So obviously he expressed a lot of his anti-Semitic sentiments there. You want to?
Well, I don't need to get up there. I just wanted to, it's having been the person who wrote it and drafted the platform for the Green Party supports one state solution.
Okay. So,
You right to return.
Yeah.
All the other.
The person who wrote the platform of the Green Party is saying that they support the one state solution. And I think at this point, the two-state solution is totally impossible, because what Israel did is they planted hundreds of settlements. It will be whatever state could exist for Palestinians in the West Bank, it will not be a viable state. Not with 700,000 settlers. Those settlers is a different breed. You know, and there's no way they'll be tolerated unless Israel is willing to get them all out of the West Bank. And at the end of the day, that's not going to solve the problem. The problem can only be solved if there is a true democracy for everybody who lives in that area. And nobody's better than anybody. And there's a rule of law, international guarantees, whatever you need to make that happen. You need to come here if you want. Yeah, we'll have one more question, and then Krista, we want to look at the questions from the audience, and then maybe you can field some of those questions for us.
Yeah, they're actually so
let's
far not really any questions. They're mostly comments, but go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. You need to be here.
Okay.
Get closer, and so people can see you.
It's mostly a remark than a question. I just want to tell people that don't be surprised that the U.S. government doesn't support the Palestinians, because the U.S. government did not support the American citizens. The 35 service Navy men that were killed in 1967 by Israel, they did not get justice from the from 67 till the mid-90s, till President Clinton got them the justice and had Israel accountable to admit that they killed those servicemen when they were going to investigate why Israel trying to annex the West Bank. So it is not a surprise to me that the US government does not support the Palestinians, because they didn't even support their own servicemen fighting for them for 30 years when it comes to Israel. So that's the difference. When it comes to Israel, there is a taboo. Even the national people, they cannot defend their own right, not even the Palestinians. And it took 30 years for the Americans to
and
get
also, let me add, U.S. citizens who are Palestinian that are, they'll come back. The cable came loose. Sorry. There are a number of U.S. citizens who are Palestinian that are trapped in Gaza. They're at the Rafah crossings, and they're not getting much support from the State Department. And historically, when Palestinians get roughed up at the airport when they arrive in Israel, and they made them sit for 8 hours for no reason and humiliated, the State Department has done nothing about it. And Blinken is the Secretary of State. He's the person who puts people on the terrorist list. I have a couple of recommendations for him. He needs to put Israel on the terrorist list, and he needs to put the United States on that list also, because the United States practices terrorism against a lot of people, directly or indirectly, and so does Israel. And by supporting Israel, at least that is also supporting terrorism, and they need to be on the same list.
Thank you.
I think we need to take some questions. Krista, I'll come back to you. Yeah, we can be here up to 5 o'clock, but we're not. Maybe we don't need to, but we're willing to stay as long as people want to talk. So, Krista, tell us what kind of what is the reaction from the people on Zoom? We have 136 left on Zoom still.
Well, it's been, I mean, all over the place. I think some people are talking about, American politics and how that plays into the whole situation, and the importance of reaching out to our representatives and expressing our views about, for those of us who are American citizens, that we have voice and we can make a difference if we speak out. But there's also questions about the disingenuousness of the current administration, or fear about, what other administration might come into the mix.
You think
I think there's some curiosity also. I was just going to say there's also some curiosity around the idea of a one state and how to make that viable. So let's see what else I can share with you here.
Do you think there'll be any difference from one administration to the next? There hasn't been for the last umpteen years.
Well, and that's just it. I think, yeah.
Israel has all the members of Congress and the House and the presidents in their back pocket. And no matter what party you vote for, except for the Green Party, perhaps, it's not going to make any difference for the Palestinians. And people were saying, you got to vote for Biden because otherwise Trump is going to win. I said, wait till you see Biden. Maybe he may want Trump instead. But they're both just as bad. There's really no difference.
Well, I think, one person raises the question, why does the U.S. put such full support behind the state of Israel? And then I would add to that, what favor are we doing to the state of Israel by backing the state on the backs of Palestinians? Why are we not for Israel?
It all has to do. It all has to do with money. If the Palestinians had $2 trillion worth of money, the U.S. will be supporting them. Because it takes money to buy politicians. You can't buy politicians with arguments, with logic, with thank you for visiting. It takes money to buy politicians. Okay, sorry, Krista.
I was just going to say, fortunately, we've had other contexts in the world, like in South Africa, or even right here in the United States, where when people speak out and hold the United States to its values, and supposedly we share these democratic values with the state of Israel. So if we hold our leaders accountable and are loud enough and demand the change that we want to see, maybe we'll get there. And we need to get there. Otherwise, people will continue to die on both sides.
Thanks, Krista. We have a questionnaire. A questioner.
It's more like a statement also.
A statement, okay.
I'm not as optimistic as some people are about the possibilities right now. And one of the things that I think is a very telling piece of information is this is a project, I think, of Western imperialism. This is a project to solidify Israel as a garrison state within the Middle East. And the expansion of power that they're looking at, the trigger that I see right now is, if you look at what's going on in Europe, together with the United States, in many European countries now they are even banning people from having the flags of Palestine, which tells me that what they're really saying is that they want to end the state of Palestine and allow Israel to basically drive the Palestinians out of their land.
It's called erasure. Erasure. They want to erase Palestine.
I think this is the
I got news for them, though.
Well, I don't think they're going to have an easy time even under those circumstances. But this, to me, is the dangerous situation that we are in right now. And I recommend for anyone who is in Europe to start wearing the Palestinian colors. If they can't carry the flag, wear red and green and black.
What we have in Europe, in Venice, we have an exhibit right now open for 6 months. So that animated map that's playing there every 10 minutes for 6 months in the middle of Italy, in the middle of Venice, and they can't do anything about it.
I think there's going to be blowback from that policy anyway. I think most democratic rights.
And we're going there next year for an exhibit for 7 months in Venice. So
that's what I just wanted to say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, you dropped something.
There's a lot of comments about how money plays into this, and I just wanted to add that, you know, the current crisis is costing American lives, Israeli lives, Palestinian lives, and it's also costing everyone a lot of money. Some people say
every
that
bomb is like $20,000.
Yeah, I mean, war makes money, and so some people are getting rich off of the death of others, and we know that. And
every Patriot missile is $1 million.
We have to call out for that money could be spent in other ways.
Thanks,
For
Krista.
sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Stanley Heller. I'm with the Middle East Crisis Committee and the Struggle Video News. And I've been doing solidarity work with Palestine for over 40 years. We started in 1982 because of a massacre, the Sabra Shatila massacre in Lebanon. You know, nobody even knows how many, 700, 1,000. I think they have 1,200 names, but some people think it's even many more.
It's more like 3,000.
And, you know, this is something that is really so horrible. I'm also working with Jewish Voice for Peace, and that's a fairly new organization. And, you know, they've done all kinds of work, and they've become an anti-Zionist organization. And then just this week, they started using the G word, genocide. And this is something I would never use before, you know, and I've gone to countless demonstrations. You can't run, you can't hide, we charge you with genocide. And I would kind of cringe, and I'd say, you know, well, it's, you know, it could always be a hell of a lot worse than what you're seeing. I mean, all these killings and, you know, the apartheid system, it is so incredibly awful. We have to understand that. And we have to name people. How many names? We mentioned Biden. Did we mention Lamont? Lamont, who went out, we picketed Lamont when he went over to Israel to drum up business for Connecticut. So Israel could invest in Connecticut. Connecticut would invest in Israel. We picketed
Blumenthal.
Wait, let me get to it. We picketed Lamont when
the senator from Tel Aviv.
When pension money, you know, millions of dollars of teacher union and state employee pensions are over in Israel. They bought Israel bonds. They bought, you know, investments in all kinds of Israeli companies. And, you know, we protested that. We actually met with the treasurer of the state of Connecticut. It took us years to get that meeting, and he basically said, my hands are tied. If the legislature says you can't invest, we'll do that. And we got to picket him. We got to get somebody in the legislature to make a proposed law on that.
All right.
Well, I want to say something though that maybe
thing.
people won't want to hear though. I think a very bad slogan is by any means necessary. I hear that at a number of demonstrations. And the idea that, you know, the Israelis are beastly, they've done some things that are unbelievable, massacres, this and this and this. And so we support anything from the resistance, and that, you know, Hamas did some terrible things. They did atrocities, and we have to say that. And that won't weaken us to say that. They went into the to that kibbutz and killed 100 people out of 1,000 there who were civilian. They went to that rock concert or whatever it was, a rave, and they stayed on various sides and killed hundreds of people there. That doesn't hurt our cause if we condemn that and then go on to all the horrible things that Israel is doing. It just makes us, well, maybe they are principled people. It's not just one side, one ethnicity versus another. They're standing up for principle, justice, human rights, things like that. And I think we need demonstrations. That's my very last point. Demonstrations. We had New Haven, we had Hartford. You know, did you see the pictures in Britain, in London? Tens of thousands of people out on the street. We've got to do that. We've got to figure some ways to get together.
They were raising flags. Did you see the guy that climbed on top of the embassy building and took the Israeli flag down and put the Palestinian flag?
Yeah, I did not see that. Did not see that. All right. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks. All right. Let me just make an announcement. If you're hungry and looking for a place to eat, Rawa is the place. RAWA, 2 miles from here on Whaley Avenue. And hopefully we'll end up there with a few people once this is done. I think, Krista, we're going to wrap up here at 4 o'clock, so
Okay.
like an hour and a half, basically. And we have a recording of this, and we'll put it on YouTube and make it available. We will send an email to our regular email list. If you're not on our email list, go to our website, palestinemuseum.us, and add yourself to the email list. You'll get notified about all these activities that we do. We do a film every Saturday, and we have a Madafe talk show every Sunday. This was a super show for that program. Yes. Yeah.
Everybody should tune in whenever there's an opportunity to see a film coming from the museum. It's easy enough to Zoom, and you'll learn a lot.
Thank you.
Say one thing.
We'll come here so people on the other side. We still have 115 people on with us.
I'm Justine McCabe. I'm a cultural anthropologist and a practicing psychologist who spent a lot of time in Palestine doing relief work and so forth. But what comes through mostly is that we forget that our country's special relationship with Israel also is based on a similar formative act, which was to kill all the natives. And so when you see the IDF, they're just the cavalry of the 19th century. And so that has never been acknowledged by our country. It's just, oh, that was okay. They were different. They were savages. And now this is happening again, of course, in the 21st century, which seems absurd. But I think that is very in American consciousness, and there's no acknowledgement of it, no sense that we're just doing the same thing and repeat it in many countries. So I think we should all remember that. And the idea that we would convince someone like Biden to forget about that is naive. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The Europeans are the same.
Yeah.
The Europeans are the same.
All right. Thank you, everybody on Zoom who joined us. Thank you, Krista. Been a momentous day here, and please share all this with other people. And we will put the thing on YouTube by morning. And we look forward to seeing you again on Saturday. As we say at the end, thank you and ma salama.
Thank you, everyone, for attending, and keep in conversation. Ma salama.
Free Palestine.